Welcome to the March edition of Northeast Journal. I'm your host, Joe Cullen. Coming up in the next half hour, we'll learn about the history of suburbs in the Twin Cities. We'll dive into some frigid waters for a good cause, and we'll check out a partnership between our area schools and libraries. All that and more is straight ahead on Northeast Journal. Hello everyone and welcome to the March edition of Northeast Journal. I'm your host, Joe Cullen. Every month on Northeast Journal we give you an inside look at the people and places that make up the northeast section of the Twin Cities. In 1950, approximately 70% of people in the Twin Cities metro lived in Minneapolis and St. Paul. By 2010, that figure had dropped to 20%. This dramatic shift from cities to suburbs took hold across the country and is seen by many historians as one of the most important events in U.S. history. Right now, there's an exhibit at the Minnesota History Center called Suburbia, which is all about what drew people to the suburbs in the first place. Take a look. If you're looking to learn about the start of suburban living in the Twin Cities, then the Suburbia exhibit at the Minnesota History Center is the place to be.
It's the story of suburban growth after World War II, but it's also the story of making a home, making a life, and I think there are lots and lots of entry points for people. Suburban, city dwellers, lots of ways that you can get around and really look at what life was like a half century ago.
Senior exhibit developer Kate Roberts tells us what you will see at the Suburbia exhibit.
So when you come to the exhibit, the first thing that you'll see that really draws people's attention, you'll see a cow. And that might seem a little odd, but when you recognize that most of the suburbs were built on farmland, that starts to make sense. You move into the very popular kitchen and living room area, where you really, this is the point where we get a lot of storytelling going. This is where people really say, I had that, I wanted that. You come around, this area we're standing in front of right now is what we sort of called our wall of desire when we were putting the exhibit together. It's a reminder that people started having more disposable income at this time, and people started wanting things at the same time that things were more widely available after the war. So TVs, hi-fis, radios, refrigerators, freezers. That's what we're kind of talking about here.
There are also sections devoted to malls and the future of suburbs. Roberts says this has been a popular exhibit that has resonated with people of all ages, whether they have connections to a suburb or not.
There are many places now that are considered suburbs that, of course, were fully developed towns and cities on their own long before the metro encompassed them. So the exhibit does sort of talk both about those cities and how they became incorporated, and then also the suburbs that were developed specifically in the 50s and early 60s.
Suburbia runs until March 20th at the Minnesota History Center, which is located at 345 Kellogg Boulevard West in St. Paul. More info is available at minnesotahistorycenter.org. The annual Polar Plunge is one of the most highly anticipated events every winter in White Bear Lake. This year's edition did not disappoint. Here's some highlights from producer Mary Klein and photographer Nicholas Anderson.
We work together, we volunteer because they don't have to pay us. Yeah. And we do such a good job, and they keep inviting us back every year because we sell more merchandise than anybody else.
Hey, don't walk on by. Come on over here and buy something. Come on.
I like to have fun. Okay. At our age, what else can you have?
We're in our second childhood, you know.
I love it. Can't you tell?
We've been plunging for about 6 years. I think this is our 6th year now, and we love doing it.
Teamed up with the blonde bombshell.
Yes, we have.
What kind of meeting is this?
I don't think there's any meeting that my wife needs to know about.
Plunging. We have raised over $45,000 for Special Olympics Minnesota.
Here we go, White Bear Lake! Come on! 3, 2, 1, play! Here we go, 3, 2, 1, play! Takes your breath away.
Not sure yet. This is first year for our costumes.
But this is our first year on the costume. If we don't come back up, you'll know what it's like.
We're partners with Special Olympics on a lot of our bouts, and so we've done this like every year. What's worse? On a day like today, the jump is going to be worse. This is gorgeous. Oh, they're crazy. They're crazy. What would it take to get you?
I'm not gonna do it. It's too cold. It's too cold.
I'm so scared. I'm terrified. This is your first time. First time. And I'm from California. Tighten some teal. Yeah. Thank you for being here. Okay. They're having fun, but we're having fun watching.
Thank you, Louie. I mentioned the men and women of law enforcement in Minnesota, and just 2 days ago...
The White Bear Lake Area School District has embarked on a new partnership with the Ramsey County Library System called the Digital Access Initiative to ensure all students have access to a library card. Here's a video produced by the Communications Department at the school district.
We have a close partnership with the suburban Ramsey County Library System. And about a year ago or two, they asked us whether we would work with them to make sure that every student had a library card.
When they learned that we were going to the one-on-one Chromebook initiative, that's when they kind of jumped on board and said, let's see if we can do something to figure out how we can get all the kids to get library cards so that they can have access to these things through the Chromebook.
Our students have one library card that gives them access to their school collection at their school library, and that same library card works at the county library system.
Carol Midhewen and I, who is my counterpart over at Central, she and I had to get together and figure out logistically what are we going to do, how are we going to introduce this to the kids, how are we going to get all of these cards to them.
Just figuring out things like how our different barcode systems were going to work together, how we're going to easily deploy new library cards to students when they come new to our district.
And then we presented lessons to them, showing them what capabilities the card would provide them.
When I learned that we'd be getting a student card as well for everybody, I was super excited.
Well, I thought that it was a very cool opportunity to have both a school library and a Ramsey County library card.
Because we're like the first ones to try it out and see if it's nice for other people to have it everywhere, and
I think it is.
We're learning that we can go to the Ramsey County Library and use everything there.
At my house, if it's just really noisy, I usually go to the library and get a room so I can study or do my work. I really love reading, and now being able to have more access to books when I'm at home, because say I finish a book later at night, I can't go over to the library or I can't come to school to get another one, so I can always hop online to get another book.
We've got students who are going to the library more often and are seeing their peers there and meeting in the library to study. We have students who are super excited to check out digital books because if they finish one at 11 o'clock at night, they can check out the next one right away and not have to wait till they can get back to the library. We've got students using the homework help.
I use homework help. It's called Homework Rescue on the Ramsey County Library. I also use their application called One Click Digital.
And then of course I have other resources online, like say I've got a homework assignment that I forgot to grab a textbook for, I can always see if that's online.
Homework Rescue it helps me a lot. It saves a lot of time, not being up till 1 o'clock in the morning doing homework.
I have 2 books open on my tab right now, actually.
It's just wonderful to see, and really the whole reason we started this partnership in the first place.
What we've seen over the last year has really been a game changer. They're talking about books, they're talking about materials, they're talking about homework help in a whole new way.
And we hope that it's just the tip of an iceberg in future partnerships between Ramsey County Library and the White Bear Lake area schools.
And it's time for a short break. We'll be right back with more of Northeast Journal in just a minute. Welcome back to Northeast Journal. The White Bear Center for the Arts recently had their first ever winter open house event. From ice carvings and sled dogs in the snow to taking a spin at the pottery wheel and crafting mini art shanties, it was a perfect day for some winter play. Here's a story on the event from our friends at On Location TV 19.
Today we're celebrating winter and ice and cold and also heat. So outside you'll see Rusty. He goes by Rusty the Clown, but he's also an artist and he works with large blocks of ice.
I was at the Minneapolis Club for 32.5 years as a ice carver and cook. I was at the vocational cooking school in Brooklyn Park in 1974, and I took a year class there. And then I went right to the Minneapolis Club and they handed me the tools and said, "You're the ice carver." Right now, I'm scribing the ice, the design of the ice carving onto the block. You have to be able to see the figure in the ice before you carve it. So you got to have an idea of what you're doing and how to see it. I'm a Metro Transit bus driver, and these folks here, they ride my bus. They live in Stillwater, so they came out to visit me. And it's a great community event. It's like Market Fest. Everybody likes to come out and have a great time. And you can come to the White Bear Arts Center, and they got all kinds of crafts you can do. They got clay. They got a great clay carving outfit, and it's just a great community event. It's been real nice for the whole community.
One other event outdoors are the dog sleds.
I'm originally from the Netherlands, but I have been here for quite some time. Well, I like the community, I like the lakes, and I love the art center. I take classes here and I go to quite a few of the events. These are Samoyeds, and they're from northern Siberia in Russia. And this is Mika with the purple harness, and she's only 1 year old, so she just wants to play. And the other one is Ariel, and she's 5 years old. Well, I kind of got into it because of the dogs that we have. And so, you know, maybe in the mid-90s, we got two new Samoyeds, and then I belonged to the Samoyed Club, and they did a lot of sledding at that time. And then I joined them, and then we just shared sleds and dogs, and that's how I kind of got into it. And after you do it a few times, you get hooked. So I got my own sled, and then we have a place up north, and I have another sled there. I think it's a great fun. I think it's good for people to see dogs and for kids, you know, to come and see the dogs, and they like to sled with them. So I think it gives them a whole different perspective than just having a dog at home, you know, just that you can do things with your dogs. Stay, good girl.
The dog sleds are going to be in the Sparkle Parade on ice on February 6th, which is the opening day of the art shanties here. So this day is really about getting the community aware of the art shanties coming, getting ourselves prepared for opening day at the art shanties. So one of the other activities along with the dog sleds is to prepare your own sleds for the Sparkle Parade.
This is the Primp Your Sled workshop. So primp your sled, so it means you're supposed to come in with a sled and then decorate the heck out of it. The art shanties are going to be taking place all the weekends in February out here on the lake. And so the sleds, you bring them along to the shanties, you can ride one around. And the whole point is to be colorful outside in the winter and get people out, which I think Minnesotans are mostly really good about that.
Make a three-headed dragon. So I have some more sleds stuff, and I have a really cool one.
Planning. Because this is an incredible pile of talent in this room. People who love to build things and build things well, and you get them started, and everybody's got their own ideas. So sometimes the best thing is just to say, well, I think I want to make a spaceship, and then you see what happens. So suddenly you got a spaceship. So this was the three-headed dragon idea. So it's turning into a three-headed dragon before your very eyes. The winter, you spend so much time inside looking out. It's just so nice to get out.
So kids and families will be able to make their own little mini art shanties.
Art projects.
In honor of the art shanties that they're making out on the lake, we are making our own mini art shanties here today.
Just use your creativity to make a pig.
Well, you start out with a sheet of ice. Then after that, the possibilities are endless. The key is basically that people have to come with their own ideas. I mean, I have all the junk, but I never would have thought of creating all of this. This takes the imagination. There's cardboard, there's all kinds of other junk. Feathers, string, cotton balls, stuffing, everything you could need.
Working on a pig.
Mine's a ninja pig. It kind of looks a little creepy right now, but it's getting there.
It's just a lot of fun. How's it going over here? Good.
And then we'll have hands-on clay playing and experimenting with clay in the clay studio.
Do you have a new ball of clay, Jennifer? Okay, let me get you a tissue. It's just so awesome. The feel of the clay in your hands and then being able to control it. But everything starts with the centering of the clay, opening it up, and then moving it, defining the thumbprint, the base of it. And then you have a choice to make. You can pull it up into a cylinder, widen it out to a bowl, or keep it very flat and move it out to a plate.
Just a second, because I'm doing the same
We're
thing
going to
here.
push from the inside out, but we're going to keep the shape of the outside, and then as we push, the clay moves up. They love it. They love it.
The community is really embracing the activities of the Art Center. We're just seeing a real magical transformation of community being built both on site and extending into you know, beyond the building.
These days, it seems like police officers get a lot of negative press, but there are so many wonderful things that they do, and you don't always hear about those stories. Producer Mary Klein and photographer Nicholas Anderson introduce us to a White Bear Lake officer who is making a positive contribution to his community.
We're not one-dimensional people, we're humans behind that badge, and often very complex people, often very intelligent, often very well-educated, as I said. So it's cool to be able to release a little bit of that to show people, yeah, there's a lot of humanity behind this job, and unfortunately that humanity is not always able to be shown because it's the negativity that generates news. Get back to work. guess, the scene of the crime. I kind of hammed up a little bit and said, due to his level of infatuation, there's, you know, we kind of made it like a DWI. There's one more test I have to run him through. And Gabrielle, would you mind getting down on one knee? And she looked at me, and I could see that the wheels were turning, but she hadn't fully processed what I was saying. And she said afterwards, she goes, it hit me, like, what? His level of infatuation? What do you know? And then she realized. Then he holds up the ring, and suddenly, you know, all the stars align. It's nice to be involved at the beginning of a relationship like that. Often in our job, we go to relationships that are in crisis, or at the end sometimes, which is not always positive. The night is often my friend, so I can use that to my advantage. I can sneak up on things, I can find things. Your night vision improves, your sense of awareness is very heightened. Stuff like that. It's not easy to describe in just, you know, simple terms. The day is not any less dangerous in many respects, but you know, there's just as many cops being shot during the day as they are at night, if I can be, you know, brutally honest. But at night we generally do get more intense calls. Often people are drinking, people are home, family relationships, dynamics, those kinds of events can be very dangerous and you know, unfold very quickly. If you're in this job, you're able to take care of yourself. You know that these things are going to affect you. You're going to have these kind of traumatic incidences, and if you're going to stay in it and survive, you've got to look after yourself and do the business. There's a lot of kids that work up at the local Kowalski's here, and Officer Salmweber, who's the school resource officer for the South Campus, regularly pumps those kids full of weird questions to ask me. So I go and pick up my dinner or something like that at Kowalski's, and one of the kids will have some obscure question to ask me about New Zealand or something else that I've done, and yeah, it's kind of entertaining. I arrived first and did CPR on the child, and with the help of Officer Minachik, you just saw before, she was a former investigator. So while I was doing CPR, she was checking for signs of trauma on the baby. We suspected that there was something suspicious. So, you know, that was a case that, one of the few cases that I've really had a very deep emotional interest in, just because anything involving a child is automatically more traumatic. So that's probably, in terms of memorability, I know it's not the most positive story, but that's one of the few cases that's really tugged at my heartstrings and made me much more invested in that case than perhaps some more run-of-the-mill, you know, minor report calls that we would typically get. You know, most people don't ordinarily have contact with police officers. Most people don't know police officers, and because of the risks and danger in our job, it's an exclusive club in that sense. You know, there's a lot of brotherhood and sisterhood in this job. There's a lot of very strong bonds between police officers because of the danger and the need for support of each other.
The Wildwood Library in Matamidi hosts a weekly event to help school-age children become more confident in their reading by reading to certified therapy dogs. Photojournalist Jeffrey Wilson has the story.
This book is called Today I Will Fly. Today I will fly. No. You will not fly today.
One of our librarians up at Forest Lake, Nancy Smith, started the program in August of 2008.
Nestled in the meeting room of Wildwood Library.
It's fun.
I like that I get to read to them because it helps me with reading. You will never fly.
First grader Mikan is practicing her reading with Phoebe.
This is Phoebe. She's 8 years old. She's a golden retriever.
They are participating in Doggone Reading, a program developed to help school-aged children practice their reading.
I am sorry, Gerald, but we must wait.
The dogs don't judge. If they miss a word or they don't know a word, the dogs just sit and listen.
Fostering a love for reading.
Whenever a dog comes in, I pick out one of these books.
Here at Wildwood, we do it weekly because we have the interest in it with our community.
By helping in a comfortable environment.
She will not fly. Fly, 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 fly.
It's a positive thing for them because they can read to a dog and there's no judgment. The dog's not going to correct them, which may be hard for a mom or a dad or a teacher not to correct them, and so it gives them confidence.
And building a sense of neighborhood.
I like the idea of the library not just being a place for books anymore. The library is reaching out to the community, and the community is reaching out and helping with the library.
All with the love of dogs.
And I like that I get to see dogs. My dad doesn't want a dog, but me and my mom say, we want a dog, we want to get one now. The sunrise. I can't wait.
Well, that's a good book.
Thank you.
That's all we have time for on this month's show. Thanks for tuning in, and join us again next month for another edition of Northeast Journal.